My name is Emily Carter. I'm 26 years old, and I was walking along the gravel shoulder of Route 9 with my 2-year-old pressed tight against my chest. He clung to me while semi-trucks thundered past, so close the ground shook under my feet. Every blast of wind made my heart jump, but I kept moving forward because I didn't know what else to do. Then I heard tires scream. A black pickup skidded to a stop right in front of me, cutting me off cold. My dad's truck. He jumped out fast, his face drained of color and twisted with anger as he looked down the empty road behind me. "Emily," he yelled over the traffic, "where's your car?" I met his eyes and finally said what I'd been holding back. "Mark took my keys," I told him. "He says I'm medically unfit to drive." Inside my father's truck, everything went quiet. The silence felt heavy after the chaos of the highway. Cold air blasted from the vents, drying the sweat on my skin, but it didn't touch the tight, sick feeling in my stomach. Lucas fell asleep almost immediately, rocked by the engine's hum. I stared at his calm little face, and that's when my hands started shaking. The fear had burned off, leaving only shame behind. "How long?" my dad asked. He didn't look at me. His eyes stayed locked on the road, his grip on the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. He wasn't asking like my father. He sounded like a police chief questioning a witness. 6 months, I whispered. Since Lucas turned 18 months. He sucked in a sharp breath. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it didn't look like abuse," I said. "That's how it works, Dad. It didn't start with a locked door or a raised fist. It started small. It started with a casserole. Linda showed up one night with dinner and told me I looked exhausted. She offered to take the night shift with Lucas. And I was exhausted, so I let her. Then Mark stepped in next. He said, "Why stress about money? I'm an accountant. Let me handle the bills so you can focus on Lucas." I was overwhelmed, so I thanked him. I watched trees blur past the window as I talked. I needed my dad to understand how the trap worked. "It's like the boiling frog," I said. "You know the story. Toss a frog into boiling water and it jumps out. But if you put it in cool water and turn the heat up slow, it dies before it knows what's happening." That was my life. The temperature rose 1 degree at a time. First, Linda moved into the guest house to help out. Then she was in my kitchen every morning, criticizing the oatmeal I made for Lucas. Then she started checking my grocery receipts, circling items she said were wasteful. When I pushed back, Mark told me I was being ungrateful. He said I had postpartum anxiety. My dad's jaw clenched. "Did a doctor say that?" "No," I said. "Mark did. Anytime I asked why he moved our savings into an account I couldn't access, he told me I was paranoid. When I asked why Linda had a key to our bedroom, he said I was being difficult. After a while, I started to believe them. They made me feel like something was wrong with my mind. Last week, I tried to take Lucas to the park, and my keys were gone. Mark said he took them for my own safety because I'd been so scattered lately. He said he was protecting me. I looked down at my hands. The skin was raw from gripping the carrier straps. "They checked my phone too," I said. "Every night." I told him how Mark claimed he was just making sure I wasn't doom-scrolling, said it was bad for my mental health. But he was reading my texts. He was tracking my location. I stopped calling my dad because I didn't want to worry him, and I didn't want them to know I was falling apart. I thought if I stayed calm enough, behaved well enough, they'd eventually give my life back. My father pulled over and parked on the shoulder. When he turned to me, the anger was gone. What replaced it was worse, cold, sharp focus. The kind a man gets after chasing predators for 30 years. "That isn't help, Emily," he said evenly. "That's a siege. They isolated you. They disarmed you. And then they took you hostage." He shifted the truck into gear. "We're going back. panic shot through my chest. No, Dad. Please. I can't. We aren't going back to talk, he said. We're going back to get your things. You're leaving that house today. And you're never walking on the side of a highway again. The tires crunched onto a spotless gravel driveway. My dad's truck looked out of place among the imported cars and perfectly trimmed hedges. The house sat silent, a beige stucco fortress wrapped in iron gates. Dad shut off the engine, but neither of us moved. Through the windshield, I saw them. Mark and Linda were on the patio. Linda laughed as she held a glass of white wine. Mark scrolled on his tablet. They looked polished. Comfortable. Like nothing had happened. Stay here, my dad said. I didn't listen. I fumbled with Lucas's straps, pulled him into my arms, and stepped out. I followed my father up the driveway, keeping pace with him. I wasn't staying behind anymore. Linda noticed us first. Her smile didn't disappear, it just froze. Oh, look who's back, she said brightly. Then she called out, Robert, you're just in time for a glass of Chardonnay. My dad climbed the stone steps, his boots heavy against the slate. He ignored the wine and stared straight at Mark. Where are her keys? He asked. His voice dropped low, the same tone he used on suspects. The kind that made people forget how to breathe. Mark stood, smoothing his polo. Let's not overreact, Robert. We were concerned. She's been unstable. We took the keys for her own safety. You know how new moms are. That mix of fake concern and casual disrespect made my blood burn. I stepped out from behind my dad. I'm not unstable, I said. And I'm leaving. Linda laughed, sharp and cruel. Leaving? Where exactly are you going, Emily? You don't have a job. You don't have a car. You barely have a brain cell left that isn't about diapers. We're protecting you. We're holding this family together because you clearly can't. My father stepped between us. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't puff up his chest. He just looked at Linda with a flat, icy stare. You aren't protecting her, he said. You're holding her hostage. Give her the keys. No. Mark folded his arms and tried to square up to my father, stretching himself taller than he was. It didn't work. And what, Robert, he sneered. You gonna arrest me? It's my car. My house. I make the rules here. If she wants to leave, she can walk. But she's not taking my son. The mood in the yard shifted instantly. Even the birds seemed to go quiet. My father stepped closer, closing the space between them. You want to talk rules, he said. Fine. Let's talk law. You're withholding her personal property. You're restricting her movement. And if you try to stop her from leaving with her child, that becomes unlawful imprisonment. Linda scoffed like it was all ridiculous. Oh, please. She's hysterical. She needs rest. She needs her passport, my father said, turning to me. Go inside. Get your documents. Grab the baby's things. I'll deal with them. I took off, darting past Mark as he reached for me. I heard Linda yelling about trespassing, about calling the police, but my father's voice cut clean through the chaos. Go ahead, Linda. Call them. I'd be happy to explain this situation to my former colleagues. I flew up the stairs, my heart slamming against my ribs. The house didn't feel familiar anymore. It felt cold. It wasn't my home, it was a crime scene. I yanked open the closet and started stuffing clothes into a duffel bag. No folding. No sorting. Lucas's onesies, my jeans, whatever my hands touched. My breathing turned sharp and uneven. Panic scratched at my throat. My father stood in the doorway with his back to me, watching the hallway. He didn't move. He didn't need to. He was a wall, a shield between me and the people who had quietly taken my life apart piece by piece. I paused, clutching Lucas's favorite blanket. "Dad," I whispered. He didn't turn around. His shoulders stayed stiff. "I saw it," he said after a moment. 6 months ago." I froze. "That Sunday dinner," he continued, his voice rougher than I'd ever heard it. "You didn't laugh once. The way you looked at Mark before answering a simple question. I saw the light going out in your eyes, Emily." My chest tightened. He knew. "I told myself it wasn't my place," he said. "I told myself marriage is hard. That I shouldn't interfere. That giving you space was helping." His voice cracked. "I thought I was respecting your boundaries. But I wasn't. I left you behind enemy lines without a weapon. I'm so sorry." The weight in his words hit hard. It was the kind of regret that sits deep, the regret of the guard who fell asleep while the walls were breached. I stepped up and rested my hand on his arm. "You're here now," I said. Then I swallowed. "But you need to know something. I didn't stay because I was weak." He turned to me, searching my face. "I stayed because I was scared that if I left without a plan, they'd take Lucas." I reached under the mattress and pulled out a thin folder, the one hiding place Linda never bothered with because she was too busy inspecting dust on the baseboards. I opened it. Inside were photos I'd taken of Mark's bank statements when he left his laptop open. Screenshots of texts between him and Linda, talking about how to manage me. Control me. I wasn't just surviving, I said quietly. I was collecting evidence. I took a breath. That's the invisible chain of survival. You don't yank against it, it just tightens. You wait. You pick the lock while they're asleep. I was waiting for the moment I could leave with Lucas and never look back. I met his eyes. Today was that moment. My father looked at the folder, then back at me. He didn't see a victim anymore. He saw his daughter. "Let's go," he said. We walked out together. Mark stood at the bottom of the stairs, staring up at us with a mix of rage and disbelief. Linda hovered behind him, phone clutched in her hand. "You can't take him," she screamed, pointing at Lucas. "That's kidnapping. I've got the police on the line right now." My father didn't even slow down. Step by heavy step, he descended the stairs, forcing Mark to back up. "It is not kidnapping for a mother to travel with her child," he said calmly. "But preventing someone from leaving a residence is unlawful restraint. And lying to a 911 dispatcher about a custody dispute to trigger a police response is filing a false report." He paused. "Would you like me to explain the sentencing guidelines?" Linda's mouth snapped shut. Her thumb hovered over her phone, shaking. I walked past them. I didn't look at Mark. I didn't look at the kitchen where I'd cried over burnt toast. I walked straight out the front door into the harsh afternoon sun. The air tasted different outside. Clean. Like oxygen. The drive to my dad's house felt like the first real breath I'd taken in a year. The silence in the truck wasn't empty, it was safe. Lucas babbled from the back seat, pointing at trees, completely unaware that his mother had just burned her life down to save his. When we pulled into my father's driveway, I expected relief. Instead, my mind went into overdrive. The adrenaline crash hit hard, leaving me shaky and nauseous. "We need to check everything," I said, dropping the duffel bag onto the kitchen table. My dad was already on the phone with his lawyer, but he nodded. "Check what?" "The money. The documents. All of it." I spread the papers out. I'd grabbed a file from Mark's home office while my dad blocked the stairs. My hands trembled as I opened it. Bank statements. Loan paperwork. Title records. It only took 10 minutes to see how bad it was. Dad hung up and walked over. "What did you find?" I stared at the page, the numbers swimming. My car, I whispered. The SUV you bought me when Lucas was born. He nodded. What about it? It's gone. Mark sold it 3 weeks ago to a dealership in the next county. I tapped the page. The bill of sales right here. Dated the day after he took my keys. $12,000. My father's face went still. Controlled. Furious. He sold a gift given to his wife, he said flatly. He didn't just sell it, I said, pushing another paper toward him. Look. He used the money to pay off a credit card, but it's not in his name. It's in Linda's. Dad scanned the page. Gambling debt. Or a failed business venture. Does it matter? I said. They stole my car to cover her mess. But that wasn't the worst part. I dug deeper into the folder, my heart pounding harder with every page. That's when I found the loan paperwork. It was from a private lender. $40,000. The borrower's name printed at the top made my stomach drop. Emily Carter. I didn't sign this, I said, my voice climbing with panic. Dad, look at the signature. He leaned in for a second. That looks like Mark trying to write your name, he said. The room tilted. He hadn't just crossed a line, he'd bulldozed over it. He'd taken out a $40,000 loan in my name. And then there was the trust fund. The $56,000 my grandmother left me. Gone. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, my fingers sliding on the screen. Incorrect password. I tried again. Account locked. I called the automated number, punched in my social security number, and listened as the robotic voice confirmed it. The balance of your account ending in 4492 is $0. My phone slipped from my hand. They hadn't just taken my car. They hadn't just taken my savings. They had wiped me out completely, my trust fund, my credit, everything I'd ever had in my name. This wasn't control anymore. This was intentional destruction. A calculated attempt to bankrupt me so I couldn't leave. My father studied the pile of documents in silence, the forged loan, the car sale, the bank transfers. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat and certain. This isn't a marriage problem, he said. This is felony fraud. When Mark and Linda showed up later, shouting through the door and threatening custody, I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I opened the door calmly and handed Mark a thick envelope. Inside was everything. The loan paperwork. The bank statements. The forged signature. I watched his confidence drain away as he read. You stole $56,000, I said. That's not a marriage. That's a crime. I gave them a choice. Return every cent by morning, or this file goes straight to the district attorney. They left in a panic. Exposed. Cornered. Powerless. 3 months later, I turned the key to my own apartment. It was small. Quiet. And every inch of it was my choice. My bank account wasn't impressive, but it belonged to me. Mark was facing charges. And I was rebuilding my life piece by piece. I wasn't grateful for the cage anymore.